Hello, my friends. Welcome to Kurt Berglund's Baseball World. We are ripping Japanese baseball cards today, and I am very excited. This is a box or a near box of BBM baseball cards, one of the three major manufacturers of Japanese baseball cards. I'm all in on NPB baseball. I just think it's fantastic. And I'm very excited to rip these and see what we have here today, and I'm glad that you're with me. I am not an expert in the NPB yet, but I'm working on it. And I know that the big hit in this pack in this set is Hideo Nomo, but there are others as well. Now these are a little bit smaller than a typical card. There they are, and I'm gonna hold this up to a regular size baseball card. Compare here. We've got a card from the Topps set that just came out, and it's a little bit shorter, and it's a little bit, a fraction of an inch thinner. But wonderful cards. The back is in Japanese, BBM baseball cards. And there are stats in the usual places for this set, so you can kind of figure out what the stats are, even if you don't know much Japanese. I'm starting to pick a little of it up. I'm in the process of writing a book about Japanese baseball history, and so if I can make my fingers work, this will even be a better video. I'm learning a little bit of Japanese as we go, but I don't know a lot. But the thing that's universal, pretty much, is where the stats go. So there's a lot of and here he is. Here he is in the second pack. This is the Hideo Nomo card, or one of them in the set. It is a 1990 Leaders card for Nomo. And of course, with Nomo, we're really talking about, well, he's been called the Nolan Ryan of the NPB. An amazing story, really, is Nomo. He went to the United States and, of course, continued an excellent career with the Dodgers and some other teams. But the thing that's really remarkable about him is that, and here's another Nomo card. Here's a card of a Dodger, Ralph Bryant. You might remember Ralph Bryant. He came and produced some big-time power numbers for the NPB. This is another Nomo card, another Leaders card for Nomo. The thing about Nomo is that he struck out a lot of people, but even in Japan, there was concern about his walk rates. And what I'm learning about him is that pitching coaches and managers would talk to him and say to him, you know, the whole tornado thing, you're not keeping your eye on home plate, you're not doing a good job, you're not doing the good job you could with control. And so if we could just modify your windup, you would have better control and likely keep the strikeouts. But Nomo's feeling, and this was the case in the major leagues as well as in the NPB, when coaches and managers would talk to him and say, you know, you're taking your eye off the plate, your mechanics, you're off balance, you're really not coming through like you should, and as a result, your control isn't what it should be. And not only are you walking batters, but you're not controlling pitches inside the strike zone as you could. And the response from Nomo consistently was, look, no, I'm not changing. I am very successful. Yeah, I'm walking some players, some batters. I'm walking some hitters, but it doesn't. I'm better off with my. I'm gonna call it his tornado windup, because if you've seen Nomo, you know what it is that that we're talking about. It's sort of along the lines of Louis Tiant's windup, sort of, but even different from that. Here's R.J. Reynolds, and Dodger fans and certainly Braves fans will remember R.J. Reynolds. And Nomo would say, no, look, I'm not changing. This is the way that I pitch. I am successful, and I'm not changing. And so what would happen is they'd have these conversations. He'd go back to striking out people. His whips, and this is a fantastic card that I just found here. This is Isao Harimoto, who was a left fielder. And to finish the story about Nomo before I go to Harimoto, he wouldn't change. And so he continued his success the way that he wanted to do it, almost immune from coaching. Now you could say, well, maybe that cost him, but maybe it didn't. What if Nomo was right? It's a very interesting question. And clearly he's one of the all-time pitchers in the NPB, dominant in the 90s. This is Isao Harimoto, who's the only player in Japan to have 3,000 hits to this point, although he may have company in the next season, a few seasons. He actually was an atomic bomb survivor. His sister was killed as a result of the blast in Hiroshima. He survived and went on to be one of the most prolific hitters in NPB history. And not only that, but even though his defense wasn't great, he had a hand problem. And so his defense, he was pretty much limited to left field. Not a great defender, but you could make the case, and I think I would make the case, he's the best left fielder in the history of the NPB. So a really amazing, an amazing career. Got some interesting hits here. One is Hideki Irabu, and another is Kaz Sasaki, a young Kaz Sasaki before he went to the Mariners. All right, continuing our rips. So there are those, getting back to Nomo, there are those who would say that if you consider the quality of the opposition that Nomo faced in the NPB, there are those that would say that you're really talking about a top 5 pitcher in the history of the NPB. Certainly his strikeout totals would be the his strikeout rate would be in that area. One of the best players, one of the best hitters of all time, Hiromitsu Ochiai, is right there. And probably the best catcher of all time, a manager in 1991, Katsuya Namura, pretty well considered to be the #1 catcher of all time, was a successful manager and mentored some excellent catchers as well. Okay. So we continue with ripping. I don't know what your thoughts are about Nomo as a major league pitcher. I know he was with Milwaukee for a year. He had passed his prime, sort of. Milwaukee could barely afford him anyway at that point. The C-League administration was sort of coming to a close in terms of their ability to compete financially. And they signed Nomo as a free agent. I think that would be for the 99 season. And Nomo started the All-Star game in the major leagues, I want to say in, was it 95 or 96, as a Dodger. And his windup, of course, was a key to throwing off the batter's timing. And here's another great pitcher, Masaki Koyama, who has been Hall of Fame eligible. I don't know if he got in this year or not. I should look that up. These are wonderful cards. Here's a pitcher that was absolutely dominant, maybe had the best peak value of any, Kaz Anao, of any particular pitcher, maybe the best peak in NPB history in terms of dominance. Didn't have as long a career as some, but he was as good as there was when he was great. He was really great. These are, you can tell these packs are older because they are definitely glued. All right, let's see who's in this one. And here's one of the catchers that Katsuya Namura has mentored, who turned into one of the top 5, I would say, catchers in NPB history, Atsuya Furuta. And there he is. All right. We are going through the 1991 season set of cards for the BBM. Got a box at a great price, and very excited to be opening these. The NPB has a wonderful sense of its own history, and it's a great part of the game in Japan. Here, of course, here we got a number of hits here. The first one is Tom O'Malley, who was an MVP, was a Giant, San Francisco Giant, and was an MVP in the NPB. Here is a card of Sadaharu O, who is the #1 player of all time in the NPB, of course. Jim Paciorek, brother of Tom, and had a career of his own with the Brewers and I think a couple other teams. And Johnny Ray, who we all know from the Come On Eileen song for Dexy's Midnight Runners. No, that's not true. Well, actually, they do sing about Johnny Ray, but not that Johnny Ray. Johnny Ray, of course, was the second baseman for the Pirates in a good part of the 80s. All right, and let's see, we got another guy from the couple guys here. A rookie, great pitcher, Shigetoshi Hasegawa in the NPB. Then we got an all-timer, Futoshi Nakanishi. Then we got a guy that Yankee fans will remember, Brian Dayette. Cubs, Yankees, a couple others. Some of the uniforms are interesting. Some of these look like softball uniforms. The NPB has really upped its game in the uniform department since the 80s and early 90s. Let's see what we got here. Okay. So as the lockout continues, and as I create this video, the lockout is still very much underway, and the NPB is looking more and more like it's going to be my new baseball destination for this season. I don't see and I could be wrong, and it could be resolved soon, I suppose, but they seem to be pretty blocked on a few issues. Here's Jim Paciorek with a batting title baseball card of 326 for his 1990 season. Guy Hoffman, if you're a White Sox fan, you remember Guy Hoffman from the 80s. The lockout is, as I create this video, they have just sort of agreed on making some rule changes about the shift. I don't know what you think about that. Let me know in the comments. But they're still far apart on some other financial issues. So it's not clear to me it's going to be resolved. Here's Orestes Destrada, who had 106 RBIs. Now remember, he has the RBI leader at 106 RBIs. They have a shorter season and played, I think in 1990, they played 144 games. So it's a considerably shorter season than by a few weeks, than the MLB. So some of the totals are a little bit depressed, but still impressive if you prorate them for the number of games that are played in a particular season. And I continue to be unable to consistently open up the packs. Here we go. Okay. Few more to go on ripping some BBM 1991 cards. Let's see here. Starting my collection very carefully. You can get here's a couple that are worth taking a look at here. Oh, here's 3. Okay. So on this card, I really like this because you can get a sense of the field. Now in some of the fields, and we can talk more about this, but you can see that it's an all dirt infield, no grass. And so you can get a look at how that changes a little bit of the game, at least appearance-wise, and certainly player-wise, by looking at a card like this. Then we have Don Schulze. If you're a Cub fan, you remember Don Schulze. And a little bit better known player, Phil Bradley. He was a good one for the Mariners in the 80s. Left fielder, sometimes a center fielder. Not a great throwing arm, but got on base. He could hit. And he went to Japan and had himself a few seasons as well. All right. Coming up now is, let's see who's in this one. Mike Laga is a name from the Tigers, I want to say. He played for Sparky, I think. Okay. Mike Laga. Orioles, Tigers. First baseman, I believe. I think. First baseman. Let me know in the comments. Let's see what we got in this one. Marvell Wynn. Pirate. Cub, center fielder, right fielder. The 80s is when the foreign players for the Masato Yoshi, right there. The 80s is when the foreign players in the early 90s really exploded in terms of impact on the game and the NPB. And so a lot of these, but the level of play, I think it's pretty hard to dispute, has steadily increased. And I think we're getting to the point now in the NPB where the level of play is very nearly comparable to what we see in the MLB. It's getting pretty close. Here's a guy that was a hitter. He was a Philly, Mike Diaz. He was a Philly in the 80s. He was a catcher and an outfielder. Big time power in the NPB. Not a great defensive catcher. And of course, with the language barrier, difficult for a foreign catcher to go to the NPB and be able to be very successful communicating with the pitchers. So he did some catching, he played some outfield, he played some first base. Mike Diaz. Here's Ozzie Canseco. Here's another card of Hiromitsu Ochiai. Great hitter, played first, third, and second. Had his own training ideas. And did not take well to coaching, but could hit. And so had an interesting career, but definitely an all-time great. In the NPB. Another one of these guys, there's a number of them who, given the opportunity, could have been very, very successful in the NPB because he could hit. Okay, and 2 more to go, and my box is ripped. My box is just about done. This is a very cool set of cards. You can see this is the Hiroshima Carp uniform. You can see they're sort of modeled after the Cincinnati Reds. Many of these uniforms are modeled after Major League franchise uniforms. Here's a Hideo Nomo card with a picture of him from, I'm guessing, his high school days. High school baseball is really the driver of a lot of NPB baseball success. It's a tremendously popular sport in high school, and players commonly go from high school success to success in the NPB. And we have one more Nomo card. And there he is. All right. So thanks for joining me for ripping some 1991 BBM NPB baseball cards. I'm Kurt Berglund. We got a lot more ripping to come as I build my baseball card collection. Thanks for being with me. And I hope you have a great day. Don't forget to click like and subscribe to my channel. Have a wonderful day. So long, everybody.